Avatar is a 2009 epic science fiction film. Directed, written, co-produced, and co-edited by James Cameron, and starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Michelle Rodriguez, and Sigourney Weaver. James Francis Cameron, born August 16, 1954, is a Canadian film director, screenwriter, and producer. A major figure in the post-New Hollywood era, Cameron is considered one of the industry's most innovative filmmakers, regularly making use of novel technologies. He first gained recognition for writing and directing The Terminator, 1984, and found further success with Aliens, 1986, The Abyss, 1989, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991, and the action comedy True Lies, 1994. It is set in the mid-22nd century, when humans are colonizing Pandora, a lush habitable moon of a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri star system, in order to mine the valuable mineral unobtainium. The expansion of the mining colony threatens the continued existence of a local tribe of Na'vi, a humanoid species indigenous to Pandora. The title of the film refers to a genetically engineered Na'vi body operated from the brain of a remotely located human that is used to interact with the natives of Pandora. Development of Avatar began in 1994, when James Cameron wrote an 80-page treatment for the film. Filming was supposed to take place after the completion of Cameron's 1997 film Titanic, for a planned release in 1999. However, according to Cameron, the necessary technology was not yet available to achieve his vision of the film. Work on the language of the Na'vi began in 2005, and Cameron began developing the screenplay and fictional universe in early 2006. Avatar was officially budgeted at $237 million, due to the groundbreaking array of new visual effects Cameron achieved in cooperation with Weta Digital in Wellington. The film made extensive use of new motion capture filming techniques and was released for traditional viewing, 3D viewing, using the RealD 3D, Dolby 3D, Spandy 3D, and IMAX 3D formats, and 4D experiences in selected South Korean theaters. Avatar premiered on December 10, 2009, in London, and was released in the United States on December 18, 2009, to positive reviews. Critics highly praised its groundbreaking visual effects, though the story was considered to be predictable. During its theatrical run, the film broke several box office records, including becoming the highest-grossing film of all time. In July 2019, this position was overtaken by Avengers: Endgame, but with subsequent re-releases, beginning with China in March 2021, it returned to becoming the highest-grossing film since then. Adjusted for inflation, Avatar is the second highest-grossing movie of all time, only behind Gone with the Wind, with a total of a little more than $3.5 billion. It also became the first film to gross more than $2 billion, and the best-selling video title of 2010 in the United States. Avatar was nominated for 9 awards at the 82nd Academy Awards, winning 3, and received numerous other accolades. The success of the film also led to electronics manufacturers releasing 3D televisions, and caused 3D films to increase in popularity. Its success led to the Avatar franchise, which includes the sequels Avatar: The Way of Water, 2022, Avatar 3, 2025, Avatar 4, 2029, and Avatar 5, 2031. Sam Worthington as Corporal Jake Sully, a disabled former Marine who becomes part of the Avatar program after his twin brother is killed. His military background helps the Na'vi warriors relate to him. Cameron cast the Australian actor after a worldwide search for promising young actors, preferring relative unknowns to keep the budget down. Worthington, who was living in his car at the time, auditioned twice early in development, and he is signed on for possible sequels. Cameron felt that because Worthington had not done a major film, he would give the character a quality that is really real. Cameron said he has that quality of being a guy you'd want to have a beer with, and he ultimately becomes a leader who transforms the world. Cameron offered the role to Matt Damon, with a 10% stake in the film's profits, but Damon turned the film down because of his commitment to the Bourne film series. Zoe Saldana as Neytiri Tiitskahamotite, the daughter of the leaders of the Omaticaya, the Na'vi clan central to the story. She is attracted to Jake because of his bravery, though frustrated with him for what she sees as his naivete and stupidity. She serves as Jake's love interest. The character, like all the Na'vi, was created using performance capture, and its visual aspect is entirely computer-generated. Saldana signed on for potential sequels. Stephen Lang as Colonel Miles Quaritch, the head of the mining operations security detail. Fiercely consistent in his disregard for any life not recognized as human, he has a profound disregard for Pandora's inhabitants that is evident in both his actions and his language. Lang had unsuccessfully auditioned for a role in Cameron's Aliens, 1986, but the director remembered Lang and sought him for Avatar. Michael Biehn, who had worked with Cameron in Aliens, The Terminator, and Terminator 2, Judgment Day, was briefly considered for the role. He read the script and watched some of the 3D footage with Cameron but was ultimately not cast. Michelle Rodriguez as Trudy Chacon, a combat pilot assigned to support the Avatar program who is sympathetic to the Na'vi. Cameron had wanted to work with Rodriguez since seeing her in Girl Fight. Giovanni Ribisi as Parker Selfridge, the corporate administrator for the RDA mining operation. While he is at first willing to destroy the Na'vi civilization to preserve the company's bottom line, he is reluctant to authorize the attacks on the Na'vi, and taint his image, doing so only after Quaritch persuades him that it is necessary and that the attacks will be humane. When the attacks are broadcast to the base, Selfridge displays discomfort at the violence. Joel David Moore as Dr. Norm Spellman, a xenoanthropologist who studies plant and animal life as part of the Avatar program. He arrives on Pandora at the same time as Jake and operates an Avatar. Although he is expected to lead the diplomatic contact with the Na'vi, it turns out that Jake has the personality better suited to win the natives' respect. In 1994, director James Cameron wrote an 80-page treatment for Avatar, drawing inspiration from every single science fiction book he had read in his childhood as well as from adventure novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs and H. Rider Haggard. In August 1996, Cameron announced that after completing Titanic, he would film Avatar, which would make use of synthetic, or computer-generated, actors. The project would cost $100 million and involve at least 6 actors in leading roles who appear to be real but do not exist in the physical world. Visual effects house Digital Domain, with whom Cameron has a partnership, joined the project, which was supposed to begin production in mid-1997 for a 1999 release. However, Cameron felt that the technology had not caught up with the story and vision that he intended to tell. He decided to concentrate on making documentaries and refining the technology for the next few years. It was revealed in a Bloomberg Businessweek cover story that 20th Century Fox had fronted $10 million to Cameron to film a proof-of-concept clip for Avatar, which he showed to Fox executives in October 2005. In February 2006, Cameron revealed that his film Project 880 was a retooled version of Avatar, a film that he had tried to make years earlier, citing the technological advances in the creation of the computer-generated characters Gollum, King Kong, and Davy Jones. Cameron had chosen Avatar over his Project Battle Angel after completing a 5-day camera test in the previous year. From January to April 2006, Cameron worked on the script and developed a culture for the film's aliens, the Na'vi. Their language was created by Dr. Paul Frommer, a linguist at USC. The Na'vi language has a lexicon of about 1,000 words, with some 30 added by Cameron. The tongue's phonemes include ejective consonants, such as the KX, and Sksong, that are found in Amharic, and the initial ing, that Cameron may have taken from Te Reo Maori. Actress Sigourney Weaver and the film's set designers met with Jody Holt, professor of plant physiology at University of California, Riverside, to learn about the methods used by botanists to study and sample plants, and to discuss ways to explain the communication between Pandora's organisms depicted in the film. From 2005 to 2007, Cameron worked with a handful of designers, including famed fantasy illustrator Wayne Barlow and renowned concept artist Jorda Shell, to shape the design of the Na'vi with paintings and physical sculptures when Cameron felt that 3D brush renderings were not capturing his vision, often working together in the kitchen of Cameron's Malibu home. In July 2006, Cameron announced that he would film Avatar for a mid-2008 release and planned to begin principal photography with an established cast by February 2007. The following August, the visual effects studio Weta Digital signed on to help Cameron produce Avatar. Stan Winston, who had collaborated with Cameron in the past, joined Avatar to help with the film's designs. Production design for the film took several years. The film had 2 different production designers, and 2 separate art departments, one of which focused on the flora and fauna of Pandora, and another that created human machines and human factors. In September 2006, Cameron was announced to be using his own reality camera system to film in 3D. The system would use 2 high-definition cameras in a single camera body to create depth perception. While these preparations were underway, Fox kept wavering in its commitment to Avatar because of its painful experience with cost overruns and delays on Cameron's previous picture, Titanic. During the production of Titanic, Cameron rewrote the script to streamline the plot by combining several characters' roles and offered to cut his fee if the film were a commercial disappointment. Cameron installed a traffic light with the amber signal lit outside of co-producer John Landau's office to represent the film's uncertain future. In mid-2006, Fox told Cameron in no uncertain terms that they were passing on this film. So he began shopping it around to other studios and approached Walt Disney Studios, showing his proof of concept to then-chairman Dick Cook. However, when Disney attempted to take over, Fox exercised its right of first refusal. In October 2006, Fox finally agreed to commit to making Avatar after Ingenious Media agreed to back the film, which reduced Fox's financial exposure to less than half of the film's official $237 million budget. After Fox accepted Avatar, one skeptical Fox executive shook his head and told Cameron and Landau, "I don't know if we're crazier for letting you do this, or if you're crazier for thinking you can do this." In December 2006, Cameron described Avatar as a futuristic tale set on a planet 200 years hence. An old-fashioned jungle adventure with an environmental conscience that aspires to a mythic level of storytelling. The January 2007 press release described the film as an emotional journey of redemption and revolution and said the story is of a wounded former Marine, thrust unwillingly into an effort to settle and exploit an exotic planet rich in biodiversity, who eventually crosses over to lead the indigenous race in a battle for survival. The story would be of an entire world complete with an ecosystem of phantasmagorical plants and creatures, and native people with a rich culture and language. Principal photography for Avatar began in April 2007 in Los Angeles and Wellington. Cameron described the film as a hybrid with a full live-action shoot in combination with computer-generated characters and live environments. "Ideally, at the end of the day, the audience has no idea which they're looking at," Cameron said. The director indicated that he had already worked for months on non-principal scenes for the film. The live action was shot with a modified version of the proprietary digital 3D fusion camera system, developed by Cameron and Vince Pace. In January 2007, Fox had announced that 3D filming for Avatar would be done at 24 frames per second despite Cameron's strong opinion that a 3D film requires higher frame rate to make strobing less noticeable. According to Cameron, the film is composed of 60% computer-generated elements and 40% live action, as well as traditional miniatures. Motion capture photography lasted 31 days at the Hughes Aircraft Stage in Playa Vista in Los Angeles. Live-action photography began in October 2007 at Stone Street Studios in Wellington and was scheduled to last 31 days. More than 1,000 people worked on the production. In preparation of the filming sequences, all of the actors underwent professional training specific to their characters such as archery, horseback riding, firearm use, and hand-to-hand combat. They received language and dialect training in the Na'vi language created for the film. Before shooting the film, Cameron also sent the cast to the Hawaiian tropical rainforests to get a feel for a rainforest setting before shooting on the soundstage. Avatar is primarily an action-adventure journey of self-discovery, in the context of imperialism and deep ecology. Cameron said his inspiration was every single science fiction book I read as a kid and that he wanted to update the style of Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter series. He acknowledged that Avatar shares themes with the films At Play in the Fields of the Lord, The Emerald Forest, and Princess Mononoke, which feature clashes between cultures and civilizations, and with Dances with Wolves, where a battered soldier finds himself drawn to the culture he was initially fighting against. He also cited Hayao Miyazaki's anime films such as Princess Mononoke as an influence on the ecosystem of Pandora. In 2012, Cameron filed a 45-page legal declaration that intended to describe in great detail the genesis of the ideas, themes, storylines, and images that came to be Avatar. In addition to historical events, such as European colonization of the Americas, his life experiences and several of his unproduced projects, Cameron drew connections between Avatar and his previous films. He cited his script and concept art for Xenogenesis, partially produced as a short film, as being the basis for many of the ideas and visual designs in Avatar. He stated that Avatar's concepts of a world mind, intelligence within nature, the idea of projecting force or consciousness using an avatar, colonization of alien planets, greedy corporate interests backed up by military force, the story of a seemingly weaker group prevailing over a technologically superior force, and the good scientist were all established and recurrent themes from his earlier films including Aliens, The Abyss, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, The Terminator and Terminator 2, Judgment Day. He specifically mentioned the water tentacle in The Abyss as an example of an avatar that takes on the appearance of an alien life form in order to bridge the cultural gap and build trust. Cameron also cited a number of works by other creators as reference points and sources of inspiration for Avatar. These include two of his favorite films, 2001, A Space Odyssey, where mankind experiences an evolution after meeting alien life, and Lawrence of Arabia, where an outsider encounters and immerses into a foreign culture and then ultimately joins that group to fight other outsiders. Cameron said he became familiar with the concept of a human operating a synthetic avatar inside another world from George Henry Smith's short story In the Imagicon and Arthur Clarke's novel The City and the Stars. He said he learned of the term avatar by reading the cyberpunk novels Neuromancer by William Gibson and Islands in the Net by Bruce Sterling. The idea of a world mind originated in the novel Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Cameron mentioned several other films about people interacting with indigenous cultures as inspiring him, including Dances with Wolves, The Man Who Would Be King, The Mission, The Emerald Forest, Medicine Man, The Jungle Book and Ferngully. He also cited as inspiration the John Carter and Tarzan stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and other adventure stories by Rudyard Kipling and Rider Haggard. In a 2007 interview with Time magazine, Cameron was asked about the meaning of the term avatar, to which he replied, "It's an incarnation of one of the Hindu gods taking a flesh form. In this film, what that means is that the human technology in the future is capable of injecting a human's intelligence into a remotely located body, a biological body." Cameron also cited the Japanese cyberpunk manga and anime Ghost in the Shell, in terms of how humans can remotely control and transfer their personalities into alien bodies. The look of the Na'vi, the humanoids indigenous to Pandora, was inspired by a dream that Cameron's mother had, long before he started work on Avatar. In her dream, she saw a blue-skinned woman 12 feet, 4 meters, tall, which he thought was kind of a cool image. Also he said, "I just like blue. It's a good color. Plus, there's a connection to the Hindu deities, which I like conceptually." He included similar creatures in his first screenplay, written in 1976 or 1977, which featured a planet with a native population of gorgeous tall blue aliens. The Na'vi were based on them. For the love story between characters Jake and Neytiri, Cameron applied a star-crossed love theme, which he said was in the tradition of Romeo and Juliet. He acknowledged its similarity to the pairing of Jack and Rose from his film Titanic. An interviewer stated, "Both couples come from radically different cultures that are contemptuous of their relationship and are forced to choose sides between the competing communities." Cameron described Neytiri as his Pocahontas, saying that his plotline followed the historical story of a white outsider falls in love with the chief's daughter, who becomes his guide to the tribe and to their special bond with nature. Cameron felt that whether or not the Jake and Neytiri love story would be perceived as believable partially hinged on the physical attractiveness of Neytiri's alien appearance, which was developed by considering her appeal to the all-male crew of artists. Although Cameron felt Jake and Neytiri do not fall in love right away, their portrayers, Worthington and Saldana, felt the characters did. Cameron said the two actors had a great chemistry during filming. For the film's Floating Hallelujah Mountains, the designers drew inspiration from many different types of mountains, but mainly the karst limestone formations in China. According to production designer Dylan Cole, the fictional floating rocks were inspired by Huangshan, also known as Yellow Mountain, Guilin, Zhangjiajie, among others around the world. Cameron had noted the influence of the Chinese peaks on the design of the floating mountains. To create the interiors of the human mining colony on Pandora, production designers visited the Noble Clyde Boudreaux oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico during June 2007. They photographed, measured and filmed every aspect of the platform, which was later replicated on screen with photorealistic CGI during post-production. Cameron said that he wanted to make something that has this spoonful of sugar of all the action and the adventure and all that, but also have a conscience that maybe in the enjoying of it makes you think a little bit about the way you interact with nature and your fellow man. He added that the Na'vi represents something that is our higher selves, or our aspirational selves, what we would like to think we are, and that even though there are good humans within the film, the humans represent what we know to be the parts of ourselves that are trashing our world and maybe condemning ourselves to a grim future. Cameron acknowledges that Avatar implicitly criticizes the United States' role in the Iraq War and the impersonal nature of mechanized warfare in general. In reference to the use of the term shock and awe in the film, Cameron said, "We know what it feels like to launch the missiles. We don't know what it feels like for them to land on our home soil, not in America," he said in later interviews. "I think it's very patriotic to question a system that needs to be corralled, and the film is definitely not anti-American." A scene in the film portrays the violent destruction of the towering Na'vi home tree, which collapses in flames after a missile attack, coating the landscape with ash and floating embers. Asked about the scene's resemblance to the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center, Cameron said he had been surprised at how much it did look like September 11th. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, 82% of 335 reviews are positive, and the average rating is 7.4 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, "It might be more impressive on a technical level than as a piece of storytelling, but Avatar reaffirms James Cameron's singular gift for imaginative, absorbing filmmaking." On Metacritic, which assigns a weighted mean score, the film has a score of 83 out of 100 based on 35 critics, indicating universal acclaim. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A, on an A+ to F scale. Every demographic surveyed was reported to give this rating.